Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of VCTV. We are here talking about fintech and blockchain, everything that's happening, everything that's not, and everything in between, and how these two areas, both technologies and industries, are redefining everything. And if you haven't been on a VCTV episode around this topic, you know that we all love it. You know that I'm a big fan, but you also know the panelists that have joined us today are huge and outstanding experts in this space. And we know how it is touching and impacting all different industries. And we're going to be talking about that today as we brought them all together for this special edition of VCTV today. And as we do here on this particular episode, I want to read off some big headlines and some big news in this industry because it is so important and things change on a millisecond basis. So here's your quick headline scoop as to what's happening in the industry. Ethereum 2.0. We just got news that it looks like it's going to launch in December. Hopefully, fingers crossed, or at least by end of year. So next phase is coming out. Get ready. Test nets, or excuse me, validators are open for business as well. Definitely check out that and see where that goes as we look at how that will power the next generation of applications and this entire world that we're going to be talking about today. JP Morgan came out with a slew of news over the past couple of weeks, good, bad, and ugly, as to what they're doing, what they're not doing, and what they are looking at in terms of the future of this industry and how they see it impacting not just their business, but all finance in general. We've got UBS coming out to say they are going to be investing $200 million in fintech startups through their new venture arm called Digital Ventures, or UBS Next, over the next few years. BMW, Toyota, Salesforce, all working on enterprise blockchain applications for internal and soon to be external use for not just their customers, but also for us as consumers. Think about mobility and the Internet of Things, and blockchain, along with digital rewards, coming into empowerment for each and every one of us. We also had the SEC chair come out and say, one day, very soon possibly, we could see the tokenization of everything, and specifically around stocks, going from what was once paper and slightly digital to then being on the blockchain as well. So much more to talk about, but I want to save that for our panelists. These are just some quick headlines of some big news that we've had happen just over in the past couple days. I wanted to share that with you. But with that, I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. A big thank you to you, our audience, for tuning in. If you like what you hear, click subscribe. We're doing this episode along with many other topics every single day here on VCTV, and would love to share more with you. If you're an investor, would like to be on to a show like today's topic or others, reach out. We'd love to find the right one for you. Entrepreneurs, we're a great set of investors and founders here. Would love to hear more about your project, your company, your service, and give you real-time feedback, and also start building relationships with you, and also get exposure to our entire live audience. Do reach out to the team and or myself. Love to find the right set for you. Big thank you to the LATOKEN team and Maria for making VCTV possible every single day. With that, today's quick intro. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. Let's go ahead and get started. Brett, welcome back to the show. A little intro, a little background for everybody.
Sure. Brett Noyce, founder and director of Unventures. We're an early stage, sorry, losing my words here, investor syndicate. So we work with about 500 VCs throughout the United States and a little bit globally, sourcing companies and putting companies in front of them. The basis of our thesis is really around fintech. We've added a few other verticals, not relevant to today, so I won't talk about that. And historically, we have done a lot in the blockchain, kind of going back to my early days of working with Tim Draper about 6 years ago, where we started a fintech incubator, and I worked with some early projects that were, building tools for capital markets well before that was cool or accepted by the market in any capacity.
Wonderful. Well, welcome back to the show. Excited to dive into all of that. Matthew, welcome back as well. It's a pleasure to have you, as always, here on VCTV. A little intro and a little background for everybody.
Thanks a lot, Kyle. Yes, it's great to be here, as always. I'm based in San Francisco, 35 years in Silicon Valley. Internet, fintech, blockchain has been our focus for most of that time. And today, Fifth Era is the family office of Alison Davis and I. Alison sits on the boards of Silicon Valley Bank, Fiserv, and just rolled up Royal Bank of Scotland. I'm on the boards, or at least an advisor to Securitize, SFOX, the leading crypto prime dealer, and actually Uphold, which is news since the last one of these sessions. And then we run we believe the only blockchain venture fund of funds. So we're investors in 20 or so blockchain venture VCs in North America, Europe, and Asia. And back to you, Carl.
Wonderful, and thank you very much for sharing all of that, and congratulations on the new assignment as well. James, welcome to the show as well. It's a pleasure to have you back here. We got a chance to talk a little bit this week around not just today's subject, but a few others. Intro and background for everybody.
Hi, I'm James Haft. I run a company called PAL Capital, which I founded in 1996 to focus on businesses that were going to benefit from the digitization of information. Back when I did that in 96, everyone said to me, that's crazy, that's not a business. Now everyone says that's crazy, it's every business. And that's really part of a longer career where for the last 30 plus years, I've been focusing on emerging markets, where I've been looking at blue ocean opportunities and the ways to bring new alpha into to be accessible to institutional and retail investors. Originally, that was defined by geographic locations, and now it's defined by being, digital businesses. So earlier, I ran Bear Stearns' office in Hong Kong and took public the first company in China to list on the New York Stock Exchange in 1990. And essentially, that was a tokenization, where I took the international shares that were ineligible to be held by US parties, and I put them into a BVI wrapper, and then took the BVI company public on the New York Stock Exchange in a way that the Chinese authorities and the US authorities were happy that they didn't cross jurisdiction with each other. I'm doing the same thing now by taking blockchain assets and some mining assets and putting them into a public company. And we're going to try and create a Berkshire Hathaway model where we can generate ongoing cash flow on an annual basis and reinvest it directly into distributed ledger opportunities to represent the only true public opportunity to invest in the alpha of this industry.
Wonderful, thank you, James, and also hi to Crypto in the background. I heard yes. Barking back there. For those that don't know, James has a wonderful, lovely little puppy, and their name is Crypto. So exactly. There you go. Adrian, welcome back to the show as well. Little intro, little background for everybody.
Thank you very much for having me. My name is Adrian Niculescu. I'm involved in a few projects. One of them is CloudCoin Consortium. CloudCoin is a post-blockchain currency. Also, I'm involved with Faster Capital, Dubai-based accelerator and incubator. I recruit startups, especially from Romania and UK, and also involved in Richard Branson's program of Virgin Startups in UK. Happy to be here, as usual.
Wonderful. MME, Mark, welcome back to the show. A little intro, a little background for everybody.
Happy to be back, Carl. It's always a pleasure to be here. Mark Müller-Eberstein on Twitter at Mark M.E. at Mark M.E. at Eberstein. 30 years in the tech industry, left Microsoft 10 years ago, founded EdgeTech, a consulting business, and about the same time started to do angel investment. I'm a member of the Alliance of Angels here in the Seattle area, founded by Bill Gates Sr., Swan Fund. I run a blockchain investor group called Codex 3. We're all angel investors, and what we drive sales is really helping entrepreneurs with not only with capital, but with connection, because blockchain and fintech, a lot of this is community. So we're trying to help our entrepreneurs not only with finances, but also with connections. So we bring them to Davos, we bring them to the Fintech Ideas Festival. That's where the CEOs of the largest banks figuring out what the future should look like, the Wells Fargo's and Visa and MasterCards of the world. In the blockchain space since 2014, I was using a research institute in Shenzhen, worked with the People Bank of China, politicians like the APEC group, and trying to make sure that make the world a better place and helping people.
Absolutely wonderful. Welcome back, Frederick. Last but not least, little intro, little background. Welcome to the show.
Hello, all audience all over the world. My name is Fredrik Sandvall, and I am today in my back office in Sweden, while I'm normally in London. My connection to fintech is mainly through crowdfunding, where I got a platform called Crowd With Us, which is very much matching things. And then also I invest a lot into real estate, which means I look forward to use blockchain to tokenize assets in the future, something I'm exploring. And I've also been part of a couple of seminars at the Parliament in London, talk about blockchain, future regulations, and so on. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Wonderful. Well, welcome everybody to today's topic and today's panel. You all have so much experience again in this industry and come at it from so many different angles. Would love to just hear what you're seeing happening in this space. What is the current state from your view when it comes to fintech and blockchain? Again, we mentioned in the pre-show, stuff like this in these two industries is changing on a millisecond basis. It's no longer days, it's no longer weeks, it's no longer hours, it's a millisecond basis. So many exciting things as it touches so many industries. So Brett, let's start with you. What are you seeing as the current state of fintech and blockchain from your viewpoint and all that you do?
Sure. Things that I am seeing, well, I mean, I think we're definitely seeing a maturing of the fintech industry. So when I started into this about 6 years ago, it was very exciting, right? We saw the Robinhoods, the SoFi's, XYZ. Definitely feels like the winners have been picked, and I've kind of felt that way for about the last 2 years. There are still lots of opportunities, and there's still a lot of companies doing things. I'd say one of the interesting areas that we've seen stuff in is people attacking different aspects of the gig economy. Definitely a lot of movement there. I don't know if there's any clear winners by any means yet. And I think when we talk about the blockchain side of this, in my world, oftentimes these things are two separate things, but I think there's a little bit of a convergence as we see the DeFi movement. So I got excited about that about a year and a half ago, just because it kind of felt like the summation of everything I was kind of working on. So excited. I mean, I think that's coming this very interesting kind of boom and probably following bust cycle, but I think it'll be interesting to see what comes out of this new wave of exuberance.
Well, and there's so much in terms of technology and industry conversion, as you said, and crossover, because this is also stuff that's happening looking at a decade in front of us, right? It's not necessarily a moment in time, but a decade and then some, as Matthew's about to comment on as well, which is super exciting. So Matthew, to you, same question, current state, what are you seeing? What are you not seeing?
Well, you know me very well by now, Carl. I tend to go back to the big picture. So, we're 20 years into the creation of a global digital economy. We called it the internet and the World Wide Web. Today, we take it as granted. However, it doesn't have native digital monies and digital assets, and you can't have a global digital economy unless you're doing the transaction as well as the communication in a real-time, low-cost, frictionless way. So digital monies are required. Everyone knows that. And it took a while for them to realize that they needed it. It actually took about 3 years to convince the world's governments and the world's banks and the world's corporations that native digital monies make sense. And I think they still think that they're all going to be sovereign backed. And I think that for 3 or 4 billion people around the world, that isn't the option because they don't trust their sovereign-backed fiat currencies. For some of us in the US and so on, it is possible that a digital dollar, a digital euro could be a good thing too. And then on the asset side of the house, say the investment side of the house, we've only digitized half the world's assets, the public equities and some of the fixed income. So most of the world's investments in, say, real estate, in funds, in private investments, and a lot of the fixed income are still paper-based. And that is remarkable. We still push paper, and it takes a long time, and it's very costly. And all of that has to be digitized. And I could keep on going, I won't. But, we could talk about peer-to-peer lending. We could talk about insurance. It's the same story. We're 20 years into a 40 or 50-year transition, and everyone on this phone has the opportunity to not only build solutions, but benefit from this enormous value creation that we're in the middle of. And it's very exciting. If you're a fintech investor, your time has come. And if you're a blockchain-focused person, so long as you have great user focus, your time has come as well. And back to you, Carl.
Thank you, Matthew. James, to you, continuing on that current state, what are you seeing?
Well, I mean, I, like Matthew, take a big picture view, macro view of these trends. And people think that everything's different each time we go around the cycle. But the truth is, the thing that stays the same is it's always people. And people have the same needs and desires that they had for the last 1,000 years. So every time a new technology comes out or a new era comes upon us, it's people are surprised because they thought the last era was the biggest one. Whether it's the invention of the printing press or the telephone or the Industrial Revolution. And so we were petering out in the internet, and then people were wondering, where's it go next? We're slowing down. There's no more growth like there was before. And the truth is, now there's the equation, there's the introduction of digital value and digital information being fungible with each other and the opportunities that creates. But if you look at what's happening, and you look at Brett and then Matthew, who were smaller and then bigger than that is the fact that these cycles are recurring. And the boom and the bust that Brett was talking about and the trend line that Matthew's talking about, these are the same in almost all emerging market blue ocean opportunities that roll through humanity. And so, like, just to take an example, because people like concrete, if you look at Amazon, which was getting hot just when I formed my company in 1996, it was one of my first investments. It's the last time I ever went short on anything, trust me, after I got burned on that one. And because the stock was going from 5 to 90 to 10 to 100 to 5, and every time you open the newspaper, it was either Amazon's going bust because it makes no sense, they'll never make $1, to Amazon's going to eat Walmart and every other retailer on earth, and there isn't going to be another retailer. But day to day, it was up and down so hard that that someone was telling you how dumb you sounded the day before every day. And now you look back at that chart and you realize that you can't even find those gyrations on the chart because it's gone up so much over time that those things that you thought were neck-breaking boom and bust are imperceptible movements of a trend line that's now obvious and easy to read. And I think that we're just on another one of those train rides, and we're way earlier than anybody thinks. Anyone who thinks they missed it because Bitcoin's at 15,000 or because Ethereum 2 is coming out or whatever, we haven't even started. The major asset markets have not been digitized in a meaningful way yet. Even if they're digitized, it's in a shallow, unimportant methodology. The legal system is still in the way, and it will get out of the way, A, in becoming more compliant, and B, in being disregarded because the new technology allows it. And so I think you're going to start to see more and more acceleration on fractals in different parts of your life and different opportunities going forward.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Mark, to you, same question. Current state, what do you see and how are you seeing?
Definitely very exciting times. It's interesting to see how far we have come over the last 6 years. So we definitely, both blockchain from a technology perspective, but also, of course, crypto, becoming definitely far more mainstream. And people like Matthew with Fifth Area do a lot of work on educating investors over the last years. And I think that really starts to sink in. I mean, it's like me exposure, you need to tell people over and over again. But I think James is right too. I mean, we are at the beginning of this whole thing. There is still 80% of the global population are unbanked. There is so much opportunity for unlocking the economic potential globally, but also realizing the efficiency that blockchain technology can bring. I think I've mentioned it before. We had from Wells Fargo CEO in 2017 said, blockchain, I have no idea what it is, to in 2019, as head of innovation said, we have 800 projects live within the organization already. And you get similar information from E&Y and Microsoft. You look around, I mean, there's so much enterprise adoption happening now of the technology. But then I think you've seen the news over the last few months where companies put their treasury into Bitcoin as a hedge against fiat currencies. I said, well, it's irresponsible for my shareholders if I not have a specific part of my treasury in those assets. And I think that's the same for a traditional investor as well. I think, and I think Matthew made this point quite convincingly on a regular basis. It's just you want to make sure you're diversifying, and it's not only shares and bonds. Crypto is just part of it today, and I think that's just becoming the de facto for most people in this space.
Thank you, Mark. Frederick, to you, what are you seeing as the current state of these areas?
Yeah, I will away with my book just because the title is catchy. Trust is new currency. The trust is a matter of all these digital assets, as we all know. If you don't have trust, then they implode or they don't even launch. So I'll take you on a history journey super quickly because I'm in Sweden today. Europe's earliest banknotes were during the 17th century, and same with copper coins and silver coins. Now the Swedish central bank has launched the e-crown, which is again, government-backed and legislated blockchain technology, which is quite interesting. To give you a quick snapshot, less than 10% of transactions in Sweden right now are done with actual cash, which means everything else is digital one way or another. So, and it was more than 2 years ago since I heard that they would like to go completely cash-free as a country. So that fits really well into the conversation today. Something else which is not linked to Sweden is I see very much the fintech industry as a driving force in the crazy COVID times to find growth, to find new possibilities, as with all the currencies already mentioned, both job opportunities, but a very high revenue per employee working in this space. So lots of value created by very few people, which again is not only good for everyone, but it is driving society. So yeah, growth in the fintech as a driving force throughout COVID is one thing I see happening.
So quick follow-up on that. I've read a lot in terms of the activity throughout Europe.
Yeah.
And that fintech is really starting to thrive. Some of the biggest trends, some of the bigger companies, and those looking again towards the next decades ahead are coming out of Europe. Are you seeing something similar? Is Europe becoming a sleeping giant, if you will, of leading this next revolution of fintech companies?
Yeah, I see a lot of things happening, both Eastern Europe, Central Europe, and around the UK where I'm based as well. But they're very interesting because many on this call are also in the whole venture capital space. Just a fraction of the total venture capital globally is actually put into Europe compared to the US, massive slice. And considering how much innovation is happening here right now, I see great potential for global investors to still find early stage investments in this space in Europe in particular, because the private equity, venture capital, and angel communities are not as developed as my experience with the US.
Absolutely. Adrian, to you, current state, what are you seeing?
I would like to start with something related to CloudCoin and to decentralized finance movement. I'm looking a lot into this trend. And initially with CloudCoin, we said that we'd join the decentralized finance movement, but the decision was to create our own CloudCoin finance movement. And even the developers team with CloudCoin, they work on a system called Radix, which will be issuing smart contracts, but without any gas fee, exactly like Ethereum is doing, but without any fees. And what I'm seeing these days is a huge concentration on forces in localization. So for example, in my home country in Romania, Revolut just launched with a smart bank, Libra Bank, because they are partnering with fintechs, local accounts, local IBAN accounts. Because there were a lot of problems from local banks to transfer any money to a Revolut account. It was considered like an external payment, not a local payment, so the fee was huge all the time. And even when you made top-ups from a Romanian account to a Revolut account, it was a commission somewhere. So they found a way through a Romanian bank but backed by an American fund. So smart American minds, they found a way, so they created local lei accounts for Revolut, which is good. They also did this for Moniz, for TransferWise. So I see a lot of things related to localization of the big platforms. This is what I'm seeing these days.
Got it. And Matthew, thank you, Adrian. And Matthew, I want to come back to you. You mentioned a few areas of opportunity. So you started talking about P2P, peer-to-peer, talking about insurance. These are areas that we haven't really touched on much here around this topic. Would love to hear your thoughts around those, as they are areas of opportunity that people should be paying attention to. If you could elaborate a little bit more as to what you're seeing in that space.
So Kyle, that's a huge question, because what you know, to put that into context, we are transitioning everything to a new everything. And so that means if in conventional financial services, we might talk about products and channels and user types, and we might be talking about enterprise and retail and in the middle SME, and we would be talking about asset classes, fixed income, public equities, and so on. And we would be talking about, if you will, the stocks and the flows. So you'd be talking about the balance sheet, liabilities and assets, and you would be talking about the payment system. All of that, everything I just said, all of it is going to be changing. You know, it's going to be coming off legacy 1970s and 80s infrastructure, and it's going to be moving to new infrastructure. And whether that's blockchain infrastructure or something else, it doesn't make a difference. It's all changing. It's all changing. Visa and MasterCard or China Union Pay all have to change their platforms and their networks. They know it. It's all changing. So everything is an opportunity right now. Now, the bigger question is, what right do you have as a team, as an entrepreneur, as a community? What right do you have to win in that change? You can go after anything, and it's all fair game. It's heavily regulated. It's heavily occupied by large players and incumbents as well as governments. And unlike many industries, unfortunately, but for those of us who are investors, fortunately, it's highly protected. So Kyle, it's amazing. Really it is. If you're an entrepreneur and you're a team, you can go after any endpoint, and you can do it in a way that is complementary to the world's largest institutions, or if you prefer, you can go to the other end of the spectrum, and you and your friends can create a network and try and do it in a decentralized peer-to-peer way. It's all possible, but it is also full of risks. And the biggest single risk is that you unwittingly or wittingly break the rules and you're non-compliant, and then someone's going to come after you. And I feel like that is just the nature of fintech. It's true too in healthcare. Healthcare is very similar. You can't just do it your way. You have to adhere to some rules, and most of the rules are there for good reason. Not all of them, but most of them are. Some of them are just legacy rules that make no sense today, but most of them are rules that are there because money is a magnet to bad actors and bad practices, and we try and protect most citizens from those bad people and those bad practices who want to disadvantage you and so on. So I've said a lot, but Kyle, I just can't, it's, as an internet fintech investor, it couldn't be a better time.
Couldn't agree more. And from our conversations we've had here on VCTV and others, you're absolutely spot on. And Brett, I want to come to you around that. I mean, you've been focusing on fintech, and Matthew's bringing out a great point that a lot of this is changing. I mean, we're 20 years into another 40 or 50 years ahead of us, realistically, with this bigger piece of the pie of the digital economy. But with that, we're also having to learn and create new rules, and also redefine what infrastructure or our financial future or others look like in a future economy. And, we've talked about this around how fast things are moving in Latin America and Africa and other emerging markets, but come back to the US and Europe and Asia as well. I mean, what's happening? What are you seeing in terms of opportunities? Can you move fast in fintech? Can you break things, or do you got to take your things step by step? As Matthew said, you got to check the boxes.
Well, I think it's relative to kind of answer that question. So compared to other startups that are not regulated, you cannot move fast or as fast, but you can move much faster than incumbents, right? Much faster than a large global bank or even a regional or, especially a community bank, right? So there's just very different rules to fintech, right? So I think things that I saw in the early days of fintech were a lot of people that were just pure technologists who thought, hey, we've got this technology, we could solve this problem. I think what they quickly learned is that, oh, by the way, there's a set of rules and there's a set of barriers, good or bad, that will, not allow you to just implement the best technology. Like this is not a space that just the best technology or product wins, right? You also have to make sure, oftentimes your FINRA, or there's a lot of regulatory bodies depending on what exactly you're doing. So those are the things to be aware of. And I think from an investor standpoint, right at this point, right, best teams look like somebody who's coming from industry, understands that, and is paired with somebody that's, has a great, has maybe worked for a leading technology company.
Absolutely. James, I want to come to you, not just around this, but also areas of opportunity. I mean, you've been focusing on this industry for a few years, but nonetheless, where are you seeing the areas of opportunity people should be paying attention to from an investor side and or from an entrepreneurial side to start building?
Well, again, starting from the larger picture, I definitely think there's never been a better time. I mean, change is happening faster and the barriers to entry are lower. So the playing field is actually more even than it's ever been in the past. And part of that has to do with, again, everything being fractals. The concept of open source software, which came around, the beginning of the age of digitization. And originally IBM and all the other big companies came out and said, well, that's ridiculous. You can never have a business model around free software. And how can you possibly share your corporate jewels and expect to be in business in the future? And now we've realized that when you recast how we think about that information and who actually owns the collective intelligence and give it back to the crowd instead of sticking it in silos, and build an economy around openness and equal knowledge, that all of a sudden these opportunities come. And what's happened now is that if you have a fintech idea, it used to be you had to have a bank and a charter, an MBA, and a bunch of, I won't go into the socio-demographics of who you needed to be. You would, go to Harvard and come out and try and get a job. Now you sit down with your friends and you go, wow, wouldn't it be cool if we all could, support the hemp industry, or we could all support, the development of the economies in places that have been deforested, and create economies. And what's happened is these new technologies, where you can take off-the-shelf concepts and modules and put them together in ways where you don't owe attribution, other than to give a nod to the people whose software you're building on top of, and where your benefit isn't really the technology anymore. Your benefit is your community and your ability to get people to employ your technology and to interact with each other and habituate. And so you've really gotten to the point where you need a lot less education than you used to need to perform these, and you can go closer to following your passion without being bogged down in what the lines of code look like. And so that, I think, opens the playing field for a lot more people. So what I look for in businesses and opportunities is, I take the technology as being binary. It either works or it doesn't work. If it doesn't work, then we don't really have to worry about the platform. If it works, you still don't have a business, and you're probably not yet interesting to me. What's interesting to me is what's the killer app? What is it that people or machines will take from your platform and incorporate into their habitual exercises on a daily or minute-by-minute basis? And that connectivity and that dependence create a community and a demand pull. And there's where you start to have the opportunities. And crypto, by its nature, allows you to establish these communities where you can compensate those people who are adding value, as opposed to those people who had the most capital at the beginning. And so all of a sudden you see ways to share the wealth and create an incentive structure that not only says, here, you can participate, but guess what? By participating, we will recognize and respect your contribution. And here's a way you can actually share in the growth of the community and the value that you're actually creating by paying attention.
I love it. Thank you. And Mark, to you, areas of opportunity, what are you seeing? Where are you seeing the gaps people should be funding and then also building?
Gladly. So just piggybacking on what James just said, it's you need much less education to build a new business today, but it's also less capital. I think with cloud computing and all the components that are out there, building off-the-shelf businesses starts to become relatively easy, and it's really about the traction, the community you're getting, and their speed is one of the core areas of success. And I think I might disagree a little bit with Matthew there, that it's only about compliance. I think compliance is an extremely important part. But the execution speed of an organization is critical. And I think we can see it globally, why we have been behind in the US quite a bit on the innovation side here, especially in the fintech space. I mean, we can look at Swipe. They did an okay job, I think, in the retail space, but they're not a global player yet. On the other hand, we have WeChat in China, Alibaba, of course, I mean, the whole Ant drama that is going on right now is probably the most valuable IPO ever if it's happening, showing what the integration of fintech tools and community, both user-based, but also from an economic base, can bring. I think there's definitely good examples. I mean, one of the companies we invested in early is PundiX. They're out of Indonesia. They're based now in Singapore because the regulatory clarity that Singapore provides allows them to build an international business. Active in over 30 countries with point of sale systems, empowering retailers to really give their clients access to a global financial system. And I think just piggybacking on what Frederick just said with his book about trust, I actually wrote a book in 2018 that came out at CES 2019 as the book to read, the trust technology. And I think what we're saying there is really you're looking at where you can facilitate collaboration, where you can unlock economic potential. That's where things are happening. And I think, yeah, and I think Matthew is absolutely right. You have to look at the folks behind it. You have to make sure, can you trust them? Can you rely on them? There's far too much scammers out there. So having a long-term vision is extremely critical for investments. Of course, I'm getting excited with what's happening on a day-to-day basis. I look at my CoinStats app, which by the way is a great portfolio tracker and trading app, and I'm on the advisory board, so just pitching them here, CoinStats. But great place. But it's exciting. Of course, it's exciting. But it's easy to lose track in the day-to-day volatility. I think it's focusing on long-term where the big rocks that are going to be moved.
Good shameless plug and no shame around it, to your point. But Frederick, to you, same question, areas of opportunity. What do you see and where should people be paying attention to?
Yeah, I like to link what James and Mark talked about, the whole aspect of collaboration, and linking that all the way back to Matthew talking peer-to-peer. So this is a very interesting industry, which again is around trust. And I see more and more of consolidation. So not so great players that are folding the cards. And I'm very much looking right now for acquisitions for client books, databases of investors to add as a way of course, how to grow through merge and acquisition. Just some of the biggest players, just a couple of weeks ago, Crowdcube and Cedars, great early stage funding platforms, they merged. And that's just an observation. I see more and more of that happening in that space. So the companies which are most agile, so for example, one company I'm working directly with, similar as your SEC, the Financial Conduct Authority in the UK, instead of applying and playing by their rules, this platform could just find a different way. So instead of playing by equivalent of the SEC rules, they can just become an investment platform. All of a sudden, they can now go outside the rule system. So if you're flexible and you prepare to pivot, then lots of opportunities together with the whole aspect of consolidating. And another interesting example of partnering and so on, one of the biggest peer-to-peer platforms in the UK has got the government as one of the funders. So the government liked how the platform was operated. So they're basically putting in business support funds through the platform. So basically they got like an extra tap of cash from the government, very cheap money, which they can distribute using the systems to the right kind of startup businesses. So an interesting angle where the government is not putting their fingers into the pie, but money. And yes, please, we'd like to see more of that.
James, do you have something to comment on that? I saw you raise your hand.
Well, we're talking a little bit here about regulation and how it interplays with fintech, and obviously when you read the paper and look at what the government's doing, you realize that it's definitely there. When I used to work in China, things were just developing. They were starting to figure out how to open the economy and be more capitalistic. And one of the things we realized was that when the Chinese government outlawed something, the first thing you needed to do was buy it. Because they only regulated those things which they were afraid of and which had value. And if you take a slightly different view on regulation, and yes, protecting the little guy, okay, but really regulation is about maintaining the power structure and keeping those people who are willing to fund the government in position and to maintain their hegemony. And so what you're seeing now is that the regulators around the world are trying to tighten the screws and put their fingers in the dikes of the places where people are circumventing. But the reality is the nature of cryptocurrency and the nature of these new economies is specifically meant to circumvent many of the controls that are out there because humanity finds them offensive. If you want to go completely philosophical here, the way that I hold my money and the way that I spend my money is the ultimate expression of my freedom of will, my freedom of expression, right? I might lie about what I say, but I don't lie about where I hold my money, and I don't lie in how I spend my money. So if you're the government, you want to control me, the way you do it is through controlling my money. And what we have right now is a battle that's occurring between the existing authorities who are trying to maintain their existing structure and individuals who've looked at the wealthy, and the wealthy have been able to choose their jurisdiction and choose their tax structures through structures in the British Virgin Islands, in Panama, in Switzerland. There's a whole industry in Switzerland for the last couple hundred years. And now individuals can start to do the same thing. And what's going to happen now in terms of politics and taxation is very interesting as we play this whack-a-mole game. But I would say that when you're looking at opportunity, that look at what's being regulated and understand that's probably a honeypot that people are going after, and it probably defines where the areas of opportunity are and where the areas of change are going to be, although it's going to be rocky and in the Chinese sense, interesting, where interesting equals danger equals opportunity.
Thank you, James. And gentlemen, we are coming to the top of the hour, so I want to make sure everyone gets in some closing thoughts and also let the audience know where they can be found online to continue the conversation. This has been outstanding of a flow of conversation. Again, there's so much that's happening in the industry, and because you all have different experiences from different angles as well, it's just great to have each of you on here to share those insights to get that full rounded picture as well. And Adrian, let's start with you. Closing thoughts, and then where can everyone find you online?
I can be found on LinkedIn. That one is my main communication hub. I'm looking which will be the most dominant platforms in the next future on fintech, blockchain, banking. Very excited to see which will be the dominant one, built around the customers, of course, around us, the customers. Thank you very much for having me here.
Thank you as well, Adrian. Frederick, to you, closing thoughts, and then where can everyone find you online?
I really wonder which will be the first country to be like the home of crypto. So basically someone might even buy a whole country, a new offshore place where all of this stuff can be spreading from completely unregulated. I look forward to that. I'm not sure which will be the first one. Best place to find me, Fredrik Sandvall is on LinkedIn. I am very quick to respond there. You can also find my real contact details there if you choose to connect. Yeah, thank you so much.
Wonderful.
And one more plug. The podcast, which is called Invest in You, is another great way how to tap into my network. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Frederick. Definitely check out Frederick's podcast as well. Mark, where can everyone find you, and also closing thought?
Sure, absolutely. Total pleasure. So it's another great conversation. Kyle, LATOKEN, thanks for putting this together. Good to see some old friends, some new friends. Always a great opportunity to learn and to share. I think we are definitely in exciting times, whatever that means, but those bring a lot of opportunities. I would highly recommend take a little bit of time off, relax, and think what the world might look like in 2025 and what all the things that will have changed in that year. And then thinking back and said, how can I take advantage of these things today? Who are the people I want to spend more time with, learn more from, and engage with them, and take advantage of the opportunities that are presenting themselves. So I'm best reachable on Twitter. Here we go, @Mark M.E. Eberstein. That's the easiest way. Direct messages are open. I'm sharing what I'm thinking or what other people are thinking there as well. And would love to stay in touch and continue the conversation. Kyle, it's always great to be here.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much. James, to you, closing thought, where can everyone find you?
First of all, Kyle, as always, really fascinating and great audience, a great panel. Thank you so much. So I am reachable at PAL Capital. That's palcapital.com. Also at LinkedIn under James Haft. My final thought is, if you're out there and you're wondering how to participate, follow your passion. Find the things that you do every day and think about what's attracting your attention. Your attention is the new currency. And so if you start to see something that's changing the way you do something, you've done things previously, and you're starting to habituate it, start thinking that other people are probably doing the same thing, and then start to investigate around that and follow that. And if you invest in things that you care about, things that you use, things that you're passionate about, you'll find that you'll pay more attention, you'll have a unique opportunity and advantage over other investors, and you'll probably find that you represent probably the same change that's happening around you.
Thank you, James. Brett, to you, closing thoughts. Where can everyone find you online?
Yeah, kind of building on a little bit on what James was saying. I mean, take a look at what problems need to be solved and things that you don't particularly like about the industry you're in, and like that you have a burning desire to solve, and go after those instead of building Me Too products. There's plenty of derivatives out there that are not worth investing in and not worth your spending your time. I can be found on LinkedIn at Brett Noyce or directly at brnoyce@unventures.co.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Brett. And last but not least, Matthew, closing thought. Where can everyone find you?
Well, firstly, I'm not going to repeat what Brett, James, Adrian, Mark, and Frederick just said. I think that was great advice. I'm going to go really tactical. What am I going to do after this panel? I'm going to get the book on trust. So would you mind posting Frederick's book into the notes?
Yes.
I need to read that book, and hopefully it's available at Amazon, Apple, and all good retailers online. The second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to learn more about the other panelists. So they got interesting things to say. And the third thing I'm going to do is I'm going to dial in again to the next Kyle Ellicott LATOKEN session. I always learn by coming to these sessions. Thanks a lot, Kyle.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. I greatly appreciate all the thoughts and insights, and also all the kind words to not only myself, but to the LATOKEN team and Maria and VCTV. So thank you all very much for sharing your insights, your knowledge with the entire audience. Thank you, Brett. Brett, James, Mark, Adrian, Frederick, Matthew, thank you again so much for everything today. And to your audience, if you like what you heard, click subscribe, give us a thumbs up. Do reach out to every single one of these investors, not just individually as to what they're doing, but also all of the stuff on the fringe, their shows, their books, their writings, everything in between. Make sure you check them out as well. Check out Frederick's book and podcast, Matthew's book and podcast. Check out Mark on Twitter, James, Adrian, Brett on LinkedIn as well. And with that being said, if you'd like to be on a show like today, do reach out to the team and or myself. We'd love to find the right set of topics, industries, or regions around the world for you to talk about, to join great investors like we had today to share your thoughts and insights. Entrepreneurs, there's a virtual stage here just for you. 60 days left, a little less in the rest of the year, but looking ahead to what Mark commented, to 2025. What should we think about? What should you be doing? Guess what? The virtual stage here is a great place for that, to get feedback on your company, product, or service with us as investors. Also build great relationships and get good exposure to our outstanding live audience. A big thank you to the entire LATOKEN team and to Maria and the entire organization for making VCTV possible every single day, along with each and every one of you in the audience, and to our investors as well. I'm your host, Kyle Ellicott. You can find me everywhere on social media at Kyle Ellicott, and definitely reach out to all of our investors. Everyone have a great day. We'll be back soon. Thank you.